Hi, my name is Shannon Bush, and I'll be presenting the Contemporary Business Leadership presentation. This is the overview on everything that we'll be going through. The business leader description. Staff Sergeant James Bush was chosen for this leadership presentation. The reason was due to his position in the military, how long he was in the leadership position for, the awards he's received, and how much he cared for and fought for his soldiers. His job in the military was to monitor other countries in Guam and make sure there were no attempted attacks. His job was to run and maintain the radar and make sure it was always working. If an enemy country decided to launch a missile attack towards another country, he was responsible to make sure the threat was eliminated. He is a combat veteran and has been lucky enough to visit countries such as Korea, Saudi Arabia, Hawaii, Japan, and he was stationed in Guam for 3 years. He received the Army Commendation Medal for his outstanding achievements and from completing his time in service. The Army Commendation Medal is awarded to military personnel that has outstanding achievement or commendable service, constant praiseworthy performance, and by showing huge acts of courage. Staff Sergeant Bush also received 5 Army Achievement Awards during his time in service. Out of the 5, he received 3 from successfully moving from one site to another, being deployed to Saudi Arabia, and being the first successful Patriot to THAAD communication missile in South Korea. Staff Sergeant James Bush joined the Army in 2017. He ranked up so fast that he was considered fast track. He was in the military for a total of 7 years, but was in his position for 4 years. He also led and trained over 30 soldiers on a day-to-day basis. He made sure to provide proper counseling and life lessons because he had a lot of soldiers under him, so he felt it was his job to help guide and shape them into not only great soldiers, but also great women and men as well. Training and cohesiveness were both key components to how he taught his soldiers. Because he believed as a leader, if you couldn't properly train your soldiers and teach them how to work as one, you've already failed them. He also believed in leading his soldiers, not controlling them with fear or power. He strongly believes if you must enforce fear or power to have your soldiers follow your direction all the time, then you haven't earned their respect. He understood that there may be a time where you need to use power or fear, but you shouldn't have to rely on it. His goal was to always accomplish the mission and maintain the welfare of his soldiers. At the end of the day, they're soldiers, and that's one of the main jobs. Setting realistic goals for his soldiers was important to him because if he risked giving a task that was impossible to complete, it would hurt their morale at the end of the day. He also fought for his soldiers daily by making sure no one took advantage of them or guided them down the wrong path, as well as fighting for their basic accommodations. Application of leadership theory, building solid relationships meant a lot to Staff Sergeant James Bush. Because he believed in creating a strong relationship goes a lot further than ruling with an iron fist and not caring about getting to know your employees, which is why he empowers a relationship-oriented leadership style. When you possess a relationship-oriented behavior, the goal is to increase the employee's skills and to create a healthy work environment between the leader and their employees and amongst the coworkers. And he made sure he had a healthy relationship with his soldiers, as well as keeping a positive work environment between his soldiers. This was key to making sure everyone's morale was higher and complete the tasks that he set forth. Greatest career achievement. Staff Sergeant James Bush's greatest career achievement was in 2022 when the soldiers were moving from one work site to the next one, or to a new one, excuse me. His team relocated $1 billion worth of equipment, including more than 30 vehicles, just overnight. There were significant hurdles that they had to overcome, such as approving licenses, personnel shortages, and scheduling conflicts. And that was mainly due to soldiers being off island at the time. Staff Sergeant James Bush worked over 37 hours right before the move due to how many issues that were arising. If his soldiers were there working, he made sure he was there working right beside them. He made sure he was there for every step of the way for the soldiers to make sure the mission was completed. Through their hard work and dedication, though, not only did they successfully complete their relocation, but they finished it ahead of time. They had a total of 48 hours to completely set up everything and have all the equipment launched up, and they finished it in under 24 hours. This is one of the reasons Staff Sergeant Bush, received an Army Achievement Award. Greatest career achievement. Why was the achievement impactful? The achievement was impactful because Guam and other countries would have been susceptible to attacks from enemy countries. This means while the equipment is offline, there is no one monitoring the skies for potential threats. So moving from one site to the next and setting it up as quickly as possible is imperative to not only the mission, but for the safety of the citizens. The move was planned for 6 months in advance and took effective planning and communication, as well as factual decision making, leadership, the cooperation of the soldiers, and continual improvement to be successful in the end. The greatest career achievement. Staff Sergeant Bush believes if you can't actively listen, then you can't effectively communicate. So, of course, he put a 5 as used always. He put a 5 for persuasion, which seemed like a lot to me, but he explained that there are many young soldiers that are inexperienced and higher ups that are stuck in their ways. So you must do quite a bit of persuading to be heard or to get change made. His commitment to growth of the people is a 4 because he's dedicated to pushing his soldiers to success. Having a higher score with each of the characteristics could mean you may be a servant leader. Managers that have the servant leadership focus on increasing service to others rather than to oneself. This makes sense because he focused on the needs of his soldiers a lot more than he did himself. Handling a challenge. In May of 2023, Guam was hit by a super typhoon and it did major damage to that tiny island. Staff Sergeant James Bush had a lot on his plate because his own house was flooded and his family car was totaled. But he still had a responsibility to his soldiers as well. After making sure his family was safe, he went to check on the soldiers and made sure they were all safe. Cell phone service was down and thousands were without power and water. There was a lot of major flooding across the island, and the soldiers had no way to wash their uniforms either. While there was a major storm, the soldiers still had to show up every day to work. So he went up the ladder to get an emergency dress code approved since no one had clean uniforms available. They set up a chain of communication where they were all in constant contact, just in case of an emergency. He was also a part of a team that worked with the Air Force to set up an emergency shelter at the gym on base. There was food, air conditioning, power, and water provided to the families and soldiers that needed it. The way Staff Sergeant Bush handled the situation proved him as a leader. Leaders inspire people around them, attempt to have their employees come together for a common goal, and they provide emotional support. Along with those traits, leaders also play a vital part in creating strategic plans and visions for the organization. Managers perform tasks such as planning, organization, investigating, and control. In turn, managers implement those goals and visions, whereas leaders control them. Staff Sergeant James Bush led this challenge with pride by bringing everyone together and inspiring others to do better for their soldiers. Handling a challenge. These were characteristics that were used while he was handling a challenge. Of course, he ranked high in empathy and healing. He got a 5 on those because those were trying times. You've seen a lot of people that were really struggling, his own family included. So, of course, he understood and felt what others were feeling. His awareness was high as well because he knew anything could go wrong at any given time, and there were still many dangers on the main road. And his commitment to the people and improving the community was high as well because it was important to bring everyone together during those times. Power base and impact of behavior. The power base that Staff Sergeant James Bush displayed to resolve the challenge was referent power. Power is the option and the resources to enforce your will over others. A power base is basically a form of power. So, referent power comes from personal traits, social relationships that essentially gains others' cooperations, and one's reputation as well is included in that. Staff Sergeant James Bush displayed a referent power base by using his reputation and relationships to lead the resolution, and others followed behind him. This was impactful because his reputation helped him travel around, his name travel around. So other platoons requested him often, and he was always the first to get picked for a mission because he's proven time and time again that he was a great leader and was a hard worker. So it was no surprise that he took control and led the efforts of the Typhoon. So, leadership style comparison. The leader that I chose is Jack Welch. He was born November 19th, 1935, and became the CEO of General Electric in 1981. When GEO was at its prime, with Jack leading it, it was valued at $14 billion, but it also lacked in technology compared to other companies, as well as lacked in having global outlook. Having global outlook is basically when someone can uniquely view the world that they and others are in. This is vital because it helps one look at things differently in another perspective. It encourages the individual to learn from others and it helps to grow overall. Jack transferred the work culture in GE by showing speakers they can celebrate their group successes, all while brainstorming ways to increase GE's performance. So he turned a boring, work environment to an energetic and exciting workplace where you could feel free to communicate. He also created the 20-70-10 method, which meant the top 20% of their employees would be trained for leadership position roles. The next 70% were considered the heart and soul of the corporation, and the bottom 10% either had some improving to do or they were let go. This caused thousands of people to be without a job, but this meant the best were running the company, and this helped the company to thrive. Jack Welch Jack Welch also believed in the 4E's leadership model. Leaders have the energy, they have they energize others, they have a competitive edge while also making the tough decisions, and they execute and achieve measurable results. While I believe Jack was great with building relationships, I believe he used a task oriented relationship. Whereas Staff Sergeant Bush is relationship oriented. When a leader is task oriented, the attention is on accomplishing the set goals, and relationship oriented is more focused on creating relationships in the workplace. Leadership style comparison with the both leaderships. When a leader has a task oriented style, the attention is on accomplishing the set goals. And a relationship oriented leader is more focused on creating relationships within the workplace. With a task oriented leader, there is a great time management and objectives will get completed quicker, on time, and more efficiently. But being such leader comes with its weaknesses as well, such as causing low morale due to the focus always being on finishing the job. With employee satisfaction being low on the list is one of those possibly. And taking employee feedback can be difficult as well because they may hear their employee out, but they may not take them seriously because the primary focus is on the task at hand. Both Jack Welch and Staff Sergeant James Bush were also great with completing tasks and good with time management. The strengths of having a relationship oriented supervisor are they communicate very well with others and the employees feel more comfortable in confiding them. This is great because it means that they have more open communication and the workplace may be more of a friendly environment. And the weaknesses of having a leader that is relationship oriented is that they may keep employees that may need to be let go due to their relationship that they have. They don't let them go, they hold on to them. And also, another weakness is they may have a hard time punishing their employees because they're so close. This is a problem because accountability may be lacking and it may be causing tension. Staff Sergeant Bush did sometimes have a hard time punishing his soldiers because he looked at them as his children. When they did something they shouldn't have, he still punished them, but it was hard doing so. Leadership lessons. Organizations need to have a mission, vision, and have a strategy plan to be successful. A mission is the reason or purpose for existing. A vision is a long term goal that describes what an organization wants to become. And a strategy is a large scale action plan that sets a path for the organization. An entrepreneur is someone that organizes and operates a business or businesses and takes on a financial risk higher than normal in order to do so. An entrepreneur will set out a mission by having a vision to where they want to go and by creating a strategy plan. Being an entrepreneur means you have different mindset than self-employed owners. When someone has an entrepreneur mindset, they know they need to delegate their responsibilities to people that are smarter than them, more experienced in those particular areas, while holding them accountable as well for their actions. They are also self efficient, resourceful, creative, risk takers, and need to achieve their goals. The mission was to protect Guam and the assets, as well as keeping the equipment, operational vehicles maintained as well. To accomplish the mission, there was a lot of teamwork that had to be included in this, as well as sharing the workload and using each other for support during this. The vision was to become one, and the strategy was to move sites. So Guam could become, better protected. The entrepreneurial mindset was essential in achieving the mission because it allowed Staff Sergeant James Bush to not only have to micromanage everybody. Looking at the Likert scale, it shows that Staff Sergeant James Bush didn't take risks too often, but he was pretty self-efficient. His need to achieve is very high, which is important as a leader. When it comes to the big five personality, the highest was agreeableness and openness to experience. Extrovertism and emotional stability were a 4, and conscious was a 3. This is the part 3 of leadership lessons. There are many behaviors a leader should avoid to be successful, but 3 that should definitely be avoided are abusive supervision, discrimination, and arrogance. Abusive supervision is sustained display of hostile verbal and also nonverbal behavior shown by leaders. Abusive supervision can be anything from ignoring someone, withholding information, belittling, or yelling at employees. This will cause low morale and can also cause a low retention rate, which is expensive because it costs more to hire and train new employees. Discrimination is making decisions in the workplace based on the employee's sex, race, national origin, sex orientation, and age. Discrimination brings lawsuits and can basically cost an organization millions of dollars and can cause the company to look bad. Arrogance is when one thinks they're too good for something or someone. This can lead to issues in the workplace because arrogance can cause tension and conflict. This is the final slide, reflections. I chose James Bush to be my leader for the interview because when I saw how he interacted with his soldiers and how much he cared for them, I knew he was a great leader. His soldiers loved him and always told me how much they appreciated him for being there for them. Right before we left Guam, James's soldiers and leaders presented him with a handmade plaque as a going away gift. He loved and nurtured his soldiers, and in return, they did the same for him. A challenge that we faced during the interview was Staff Sergeant James Bush didn't always understand the key terms that was used, so I had to keep the textbook handy and use it often. A follow-up question that I asked was, if you could do it all over again, meaning your military career, would you? He said I would have chosen the Air Force instead of the Army, but it wouldn't have changed my passion, drive, or love for my soldiers. I believe I would have still become a great leader because of who I am. I've learned that when it comes to effective leadership, there's much more to it than I ever thought. And when it comes to being an effective leader, you must have effective communication, be fair, possess efficient managerial skills, treat everyone equally, and just be reliable. And that's the end of my presentation. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you and have a great day.